neighborhood circle may be safe enough, but that doesn't stop people from still being afraid, largely due to violent video games and TV. Mean World Syndrome says the more violent media people consume, the more fearful they become. And it comes from the cultivation theory, which is the longer we spend inside a television world, the more we think that that world is true. So, if you watch a lot of local news, which is covered in violent, gruesome news, you'll believe that your town is more dangerous than it really is. Similarly, if you watch a lot of dramas like Criminal Minds or Law and Order, you may believe that there are lots of serial killers, murderers, and rapists around, when the reality is quite different. This is especially true for children. According to the American Psychiatric Association, children exposed to violent TV and movies are more likely to be desensitized to violence, have aggressive behaviors, and are more likely to think that the world around them is more dangerous than it actually is. So what do we do? Over the last 5 years, murder rates have gone down 13%, but news coverage of murders has gone up. We think the world is so much more dangerous than it is, and there seems not to be a way to solve it. But there is. Wired.com offers many solutions to solving this problem. They say to encourage kids to take action when issues concern them. Get your news from sources that adhere closely to journalistic standards, and consider widening your perspective with news from international sources. Take, for example, this alley. It's perfectly safe. It's in Northwest DC. But many people may find this scary. Sure, you may hear about one bad thing happening here, but thousands of people walk through this alley every year. The chances of anything bad happening are no more than they are anywhere else. So, while Mean World Syndrome is often considered a media problem, it's also a problem for members of society. People need to be aware of what they're watching and the full context of it. Sure, you may see murders and burglaries in the local news, but that's not representative of what's actually happening. And to take it as representative of what's happening is a huge part of the issue. I spoke to Jamie Clark, a student at American University, about this very problem.
When you watch the news, are you more afraid of the world around you after?
Yeah, a little bit. The news makes it seem like you're just constantly at threat of attack, but I've never actually been attacked.
This was especially true in the 2016 election, with figureheads like Trump and Sean Hannity spewing things like this.
They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
Talking about danger and violence is so effective because it works. It worked in 2016. Trump supporters believed that they were coming under attack, and still do, from people coming into the country as immigrants. You've seen a crackdown at ICE, Customs and Border, and fewer people coming into the country. From the 2016 election to the news, there's often stories about ISIS and terrorist attacks, and it can make us feel like we're under constant siege. But if you look at the numbers, it's not true. But many of us operate like this.
So the threat of terrorism is a pretty big one. Do you know anyone who thinks that they're always under attack?
Yeah, both of my parents constantly give me warnings to be on the lookout, be aware of my surroundings because I live in Washington, D.C., American University. It's right here in the nation's capital, and every time that there's some kind of news story about terrorism, I get multiple messages and calls being like, make sure you're being aware of your surroundings. And they're very paranoid people, and I'm just like, there's not a huge threat to this school in the suburbs, but
Would you call them well-read people?
no. They're not stupid, but they keep to very conservative news sources.
So what do they tend to watch?
Fox News.
This goes back to the Wired article. Reading a different group of sources, not just one, can help us avoid this fear. According to Dr. Graham Davey, of psychology today, the psychological effects of TV news are huge. But it's because people only watch one.
So you only watched Fox when you were in high school and as a kid. Like, how did that impact your view of the world?
It was made my view of the world super narrow. It also made me feel like a little more in danger, a little more like on edge because there's a lot of kind of like crisis and disaster reports, which made you kind of like freak out a little bit and be like, OMG, like what's gonna happen next? So.
And since you've come here and you sort of expanded your gauntlet of news, how has that changed your view of the world?
It's like, wow, the world's not gonna crash to a halt and then like tomorrow or even later.
Sorry, watching more news, how has that changed your worldview?
It's definitely it's definitely broadened my like horizons and definitely like helped me get like a much more clear view of what's going on because I'm using more than one news source, so I'm getting more than one point of view on like the same events that are happening, which definitely helps put everything into perspective and makes me feel a little less in danger all the time because not everyone's trying to sell you a crisis.
So here's the takeaway. The more news we watch, the more news we read, and the more variety we get, the better off we are as a society. People are inherently curious, and if they read more, they'll understand what's happening in a better way. Mean World Syndrome is a real thing, but it can be solved if people just open their minds. That's obviously a challenge in today's age, but it's doable, and it's so simple. I asked Jamie for her input as well.
I think that people need to examine more news sources and really expand all of their views to get more than one side of a story. There's always more than one. I also think that people should kind of step back for a second and kind of look at their own life. You're like way more likely to like die via vending machine than you are by terrorist attack. So just because like they're really emphasizing a story doesn't actually make it true.